Viewers, thanks for tuning into this earnings conversation. But frankly, with Biocon and Ms. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, it's never just an earnings conversation, but beyond that. But since the numbers have come out, let me start with that. Mitch Shaw joins us right now on this conversation. Mitch Shaw, good having you. Thanks much for joining in. Can you tell us how did this quarter fare compared to what you were estimating in your terms? And then I'll get to some specifics.
So I'm very pleased with the way we have recovered from the abnormal quarter that we had last quarter. As you know, we dipped quite sharply last quarter, and now we've recovered as we promised. And I think the path ahead is going to be a growth path. So I think we are very confident, we have the visibility, and we've had some very important milestones along the way, which gives us even more confidence. So I, for one, believe that, we are now behind that abnormal quarter.
Okay, interesting. And I'll get to the reasons thereof as well. But just one quick question on this quarter too. And as lame it may be to talk about margins quarter after quarter, the reason I bring this up is that while there has been a dip in the gross margins due to R&D costs, fixed costs, what have you, you've done slightly better than what the worst estimates were. So is this a sign that on the operational front, things have kind of, for lack of a better word, bottomed out?
Well, we could have done even a little better. But if you remember, Syngene had a flat performance largely because their April performance was very, very low because of the lockdown. They couldn't bring their scientists to work. And therefore, they had a big impact on April, which they then recovered very sharply from in the next 2 months. So if you look at their actual performance, which is flat, you can actually see that they could have actually had good growth if they hadn't had that skeletal staff in April, which brought them down. Secondly, if you look at even our performance, fortunately, even though we had a lockdown, we could start operating our key functions like manufacturing. But then it was a bit challenging in April, but we actually, really buoyed up our operations in the next 2 months. So even we could have probably had a little better performance, but having said that, I think we've had a very strong performance. 16% year-on-year growth for the generics business, 19% year-on-year growth for the biologics business, and a flat performance for research services. But one more thing I want to add is that if you look at biologics, we actually saw a 60% jump quarter on quarter in terms of the sequential quarter from March end to June end. So I think that tells you how the business has bounced back. So I think we are very confident that the coming quarters will only look better and stronger.
Yeah, and I have a few questions, or a couple of questions on the biologics piece as well, because you're doing so much there. But just one quick, hygiene question. How are operations currently, Mitch Shaw? Because from a lot of your peers within pharma or otherwise in India Inc., I get a sense of a bit of a stop-start kind of a scenario because of the way it's spreading now to tier 2, tier 3 cities. What's been your experience for your company as well as for the industry?
Yes, it's been very challenging, Neeraj, because, as you can understand, the workplace protocols to keep employees safe and to create an infection-free campus or work environment is very tough in these circumstances. Up until the end of May, Bangalore was a safe haven. So we did very well. And now you can see the cases are rising in Bangalore. So it's very, very difficult to make sure that everyone is infection-free. The good news is that, of course, Syngene has its own, viral testing lab. And it is an accredited testing lab for the country and for the government. So we have been sort of utilizing that to really come out with protocols that ensure that people on the campus are infection-free. And, we have seen many cases who have tested positive, but because of the protocols we have, they haven't contaminated the workplace. So it's not to say that our employees are not testing positive, but they're testing positive outside the campus. And as soon as they test positive, of course, they are made to quarantine outside and only come back once they're negative. So I think that has helped us a lot to keep this sort of vigil on the positive cases, on the infection rates and what have you. So far so good, but fingers crossed.
So far, so good, fingers crossed. And I think that's the best that almost anybody can probably guess. And I guess that's probably it. So let's talk about the opportunities, Ms. Shaw. You spoke about how the road ahead seems good from a business perspective. I think everybody that I speak to, every report that I read speaks about insulin glargine now. It's been about a month, if I'm not wrong, or a month and a quarter. Can you talk about how important this would be for you? And is the launch in H2 likely to be front-ended or back-ended? Is it possible to predict that?
So first and foremost, I think this approval is extremely important to us because, it is about our insulin strategy for the future. And I think this is a very important entry point for us in the US market. And what we've also done very smartly is to tie up a very exclusive partnership with Voluntis for Insulia, which is the first US FDA approved digital platform for insulin. And this is a very important digital platform for us because it differentiates us in a very strategic way. It is a personalized medicine platform, and in the times of COVID, you know that these are the kind of innovations and interventions that you will need to keep diabetes under control. So there is a huge value add to pharmacoeconomics, which payers are ready to pay for. So I think that's the way we are approaching this entry into the US market. And this will actually also help Biocon's own recombinant human insulin when it enters the US market, which hopefully be very soon. And we also have insulin aspart that we have partnered with Mylan that will also come into the market before too long. So we would have a very comprehensive portfolio of insulins, which will make us a very strong diabetes insulin player, because in our generics portfolio, we also have many of those ANDAs, which are very important for diabetes management.
So you would reckon front-ended in the second half, and also just a follow-up, a very layman question, Ms. Shaw. The mother market opportunity is obviously very large, but this obviously opens up in a big way opportunities elsewhere too, including the domestic market, I would reckon.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I think this is a big opportunity for us.
Shaw, can you hear me?
Yes, this is...
Just try and reconnect that feed with Ms. Shaw. It will be important to talk about. Sorry, Ms. Shaw, I just lost you in between. The voice had gone away. Would you please care to repeat what you were trying to say, response to my question?
Yeah, I think this is a very important global opportunity. Whilst the US opportunity is definitely very important and very large, I think the global opportunity is huge. And I think if we want to see ourselves play in a very dominant way in the global markets, we have to basically do things differently. So I personally believe that both the Voluntis product and the fact that we have a very comprehensive portfolio in insulins makes us a very dominant player globally. We have invested in large global scale capacity, both in insulins and biosimilars. As you know, our huge investment that we made in our bioreactor capacity for biosimilars in Bangalore has also come on stream. And, this actually positions us in a very, very unique way, in a very dominant way to play in biosimilars globally. So I think that's what the exciting opportunity is for Biocon and for Mylan, of course, our partners, Sandoz as well. But I think what is even more exciting is the recent success we've had with itolizumab. I think itolizumab, which is a novel molecule, which of course we are wanting to now develop globally for the management of the cytokine release storm, starting with COVID. But as you know, CRS is seen in many other cases as well, opens up a huge opportunity for us. And to me, the way I look at itolizumab is it could be the first blockbuster drug out of India as a unique offering, because nobody else globally has an anti-CD6 antibody. I just wanted to make sure that you understood that there are many players with IL-6, but there is nobody with an anti-CD6. And that's why I'm so excited to make a big success of this molecule.
Inshallah, as they say. Just a quick thought though, I mean, I'm guessing that for now, we talk about those numbers would be difficult, right? Because these would be early days, smaller test populations, limited supplies. I think more clarity maybe in a quarter with regards to...
Yes, right now actually we are struggling with capacities for itolizumab because we didn't expect this kind of success. And we have, product for addressing a few thousand patients here, in India. But we certainly know that this is about millions of patients worldwide. And therefore, if we can really actually ramp up our capacity, which we are trying to do in a very breakneck speed. So we are also looking at warp speed to boost our capacity. And I think that is something which will happen definitely over the next few months. So fortunately, we've got capacity, which we can reharness. Okay. So I think that's something which we are looking at very fast, and there's a crack team. We are in mission mode to try and see how we can actually leverage all that capacity.
Okay, last couple of questions, Mishra. One, you briefly referred to these in your earlier answers as well, right? The opportunities on biosimilars and how gung-ho you are, because you're doing some independently, Biocon Biologics, some with Mylan as well. I think you're on record saying that 8 odd opportunities with Mylan by 2023 or together. Can you throw a bit of light on this?
Yes, so as a company, we actually ventured into biosimilars through a very strategic partnership with Mylan.
Yes.
For the first 8 biosimilar programs, and I'm very happy to see how most of them have now entered the market very successfully, that too. And then, of course, we created another partnership with Sandoz, which are a few more molecules. But then most exciting for us is our own pipeline following that. So as I said, we hope that we will open our innings with recombinant human insulin, which will be under the pure Biocon brand name. And then we have a few other molecules coming in very shortly after that under a Biocon alone strategy. And I think that gives us the opportunity to be a very strong commercial player in biosimilars. And I think I can proudly say that we are the company, a pure play biosimilars company, and the only pure play biosimilars company in the world, Biocon Biologics, with such a large portfolio of products. We have a pipeline of 28 molecules. I don't think anyone comes close to us. So I think with that kind of a focused, investment opportunity and a focused commercialization strategy and an R&D strategy, I think it positions us in a very strong way for the foreseeable future.
Okay, one last question, Mishra, because I'm sure you have a busy day. But at times it becomes very difficult to for investors to try and second guess the combination of the linear and the non-linear growth opportunities for a company over a period of 2, 3, 5 years. The easiest thing to do is to say every pharma company in a post-COVID world would do well. The question is, how well can companies do over a period of 2, 3, 5 years? What's your sense as you talk about it for the first time in a post-COVID world? What's your sense of how your company is placed over, say, 3 years or 5 years?
I would like investors to track R&D investment. Because if you don't track R&D investment, you cannot project non-linear growth. Okay, I think as a company, we are very science-driven, very research-driven. We have made huge investments in R&D. And I've been crucified for investing so much in R&D. But look at the kind of non-linear opportunities we are creating today. Biosimilars is definitely a non-linear opportunity for the group. Itolizumab is a non-linear opportunity for the group. We have also created a new startup in Boston called Bicara, which has a potential of being a non-linear contributor to growth. And we also have, of course, our insulin Tregopil, which if things work well, could be a huge growth driver in a non-linear way. So I think you need to look at pipelines, you need to look at the timing of the pipelines, and you need to look at how much is being invested in R&D. If you don't invest in R&D, you are not going to get non-linear growth. If you don't invest in R&D, you're going to get very incremental growth. So I think that's the way you have to judge it. Even our generics business is investing furiously in R&D. And so once you track their pipeline, you can expect huge non-linear growth over the next few years. But the thing that you must remember is R&D investment is gestational. So you're not likely to see it year on year. You're likely to see this non-linear growth happening in year 3 or year 4.
Yeah.
That's the way you have to track it.
Yeah, we'll try our best to do that. But keep up the good work, Ms. Shaw. Thanks so much. Actually, before I wrap up, sorry, just one last question. And of Biocon, I hear a lot of people talk about, say, for example, Mumbai being past the pandemic stage, or certain other cities past the pandemic stage. A lot of terms like herd immunity, etc., thrown in. To your mind, where are we in this cycle of COVID-19?
You know, India is a vast country, and you are going to see these kind of flattening of curves happening at different times in different states. Right now, you can see Tamil Nadu has had the biggest surge yesterday of both deaths and number of cases. So you can see that whilst Maharashtra is kind of slowing down, and of course Delhi has slowed down, you can see Karnataka is in a surge state, Tamil Nadu is in a surge state, Kerala is managing to keep it under control, but you're also going to see surging happening in many other states. I mean, look what's happening in the US. US thought it had gotten over the peak, but look at the way it's really, surging and raging in the southern states now. It's really bad. Okay, so I think you'll see different parts of the country surging and flattening at different times. Someone has forecasted that by the end of November, most of the country should have, gone through the peak, is what people are saying. So I think till the end of the year, we have to be in a state of preparedness, because you are going to see these numbers surge in different parts of the country. But I think the good news is some of the worst hit centers are beginning to slow down. And yes, herd immunity is going to happen in cities especially. So wherever there are congested kind of populations, you're likely to see herd immunity. And I think you're seeing that in Delhi, you will see that in Mumbai, and hopefully you'll see this in many other large metros.
Yeah, well, fingers for this paper better. But thank you so much for the answer as well, and Ms. Shaw, and thank you so much for your time. Stay safe.
Thank you.